as champions. And sometimes I think to get a project through, you need to go to like 12 or 14 different departments to get different approvals, and some of them are in conflict with each other, and it's just a bureaucratic mess. And so they're doing a lot of work to streamline that. They've brought in a green building requirement. They've done a lot of work, and they're trying to look in these integrative ways to develop TOD, things like that. That said, it's a monster of a city with a lot of complexity. So, you know, sometimes we're still looking for baby steps. But I think the bigger issue is how do we, in all of our different facilities, find, or different roles, find the people within local government, within the different agencies who have the great ideas and support them and let the leadership know that they've got great ideas and bring that out and really work closely with them, find our internal champions across the board. They're out there.
Well, I just had just a quick comment on leadership and kind of vision. And this is not a city official, but I remember I worked on Victoria Gardens years ago in Forest City, and Brian Jones was the developer of that. We, at the very beginning of that project, he set the tone and said, this is going to be a downtown built over time. Let's figure out how to do this. How do we create this? And he was so clear and driven and focused on that. He was flexible in how he got there, but very determined on the vision, and I think that's what it took. And it really came together very well. I mean, some people may like it or not. It's been a very successful project. But just that clarity and focus and simplicity of what the objective was really determined that everybody rallied around it and figured out how to make it work. And it was a successful leadership in that area.
Coming.
Maybe I can just speak up.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you for a really good discussion. I don't know if you can hear me, but if this is better. A few weeks ago, I was at a conference and I heard Carl Steinert speak. He's an urban geographer, and he raised a really interesting question, and I want to sort of paraphrase that for you. He said that as designers and planners, we're really good at telling people what we think they need to do when we place them. And as geographers and ecologists and science-based, fields, the question is much more, what has happened here in the past? What do we need to do to create the trends and project that forward? But he said the challenge lies in not either of them, because the designers, he said, are really good at the small scale project or even slightly larger, the regional project. And the scientists are really good at a very large scale, but they're very uncomfortable when you get to a smaller scale. So the question he was asking in some ways, what made me think it is there's a missing link where scientists, geographers, ecologists, and things like that, and the designers and planners and the landscape architects don't have a language to communicate. And all of you pointed to sort of this integrated design process and the charrette, but all of that still leaves an opportunity for how do we enhance that communication, how do we make that link happen, because natural development is all about regional planning and expanding the scale of what we do. So just your thoughts.
Brilliant idea too. A great comment, great question. Where I think it comes down to, it is semantics. It's very much about coming up with a language that everybody can understand to get the synergistic process going. Because I think ideally the trick to successful projects is a complementary team, and complementary with an I, in terms of where people's strengths are made productive and their weaknesses made irrelevant by the strengths of the other people. And so how do we create first that synergistic complementary team, and then coming up with this, again, this workbook that you created here is right on. It could be refined in the sense of clarifying the vision statement. I mean, really articulating what our primary goal, 3 to 5 sentences, what that real vision is, the goals and objectives for that, what the core values are, and then the imagery, all the imagery that supports that in terms of other places, events, or circumstances that control that idea and palette. And then I think you need a book of what do those words mean to everybody. You actually have to go through and define these definitions and clarify them and create the source book that then people can have a common language to communicate. I think the tool that we can provide to create that synergistic complementary process is critical to create the product.
I'll just jump in as actually trained as a scientist and an academic and leaving academia because I felt like they were all kind of talking to each other and I was much more interested in talking with the people who are making actual land use decisions. So I've definitely experienced that dichotomy, and there's a world out there that's talking in one language to each other and a world out there that's doing all kinds of important things, and there is an important disconnect. So, I mean, there are people out there who say, we talk about biomimicry and things like that, and the importance of bringing a biologist onto your project and actually bringing a scientist in there or geographer to have some of those conversations. But even if you're not having that, I think the best tool that I've encountered that's out there right now is a really good charrette, and a charrette not just as a one-time event, but a kickoff charrette where everyone gets aligned around a common purpose. What do we mean by that vision? And what are the kinds of strategies we're going to look at to get there? And then a series of charrettes at different critical milestones without the project. So we're going to have a charrette just on, this kind of system, or we're going to have a charrette just on this issue, and reusing that throughout the process to bring that team back together to capture. It's not just academia or scientists versus, designers. I mean, all the designers, the civil engineer and the planner, may be talking completely different languages, and then when you get into horizontal or to vertical development, you have a whole other set of scales and questions going on. So how do you bring those people together? Bring the contractor and the builders to the table early on. Bring some of these different expertise that work at different phases together, and using that charrette as a place for people to talk together and really understand that vision is a really powerful tool.
I think there is one of those elements is actually using the technology that we have today to communicate those things. The University of Toronto has developed this really great 3D modeling program that it's portable and you take to different events, and it helps get over language barriers, and it helps end that conflict that you sometimes have between residents and a developer. Developer wants this, they want to put up 20 stories of a building, and so you can do the visual, the massing of these buildings, and so if you communicate this and put it online and allow access to it, those I think that's a really huge one. And then the other thing is actually using all the tech nerds out there, all these people that are building apps for the phones and for online, being able to integrate those kind of technologies, so you can communicate those things to people that can't come to all those charrettes, that can't come to those public meetings, but they do have time at 11 o'clock at night when they get home and they put the kids to bed, and they've done the laundry. That's a time that they can actually interact and learn about what's going on around them. So I think those are some of the ways of being better able to communicate.
Just one more quick question from the back.
Yes, I had a quick question. First of all, this has been a very exciting and enjoyable conference for me, just listening in. I've seen developments from a lot of different perspectives, whether I've worked in the public sector, or I've been a commissioner, or I've been in the private sector as a consultant. One of the things that you guys have touched on, and I think that would be helpful for the people that are walking away with these taps, is what context and what time frame should they be looking at the development of these plans for? Because I've heard from the panelists, not just you, but before, that certain people are looking at them in a shorter time frame. And the question that Yolanda asked about a developer who comes in and says, I need to make a decision today because this is important for me to make today. I'm just curious, what kind of advice would you be giving to the cities of Garden Grove and the cities of Laguna Hills who are going to be working with these TAP panels, the recommendations, and then developing a plan? Should they be looking at 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? My opinion is that they should be timeless, that the great places aren't fixed on a time, they're fixed on the principles of the plan and the buy-in from the plan so that they transfer from leader to leader. And it's important to have a good leader, but it's important to have a good plan that they understand in order to be a good leader of that plan. So just asking you, what is your thought on time frame for this?
That's a great point. You're exactly right. It should be timeless. If it's built on timeless principles, the solution should be timeless. The Constitution that we all live by is really thriving because it has timeless principles built into it. And I think we have to come up with those type of visions and vision statements and core values that really have, the ability to transcend people and circumstances and create something we can build on. I mean, again, it's all esoteric and philosophical, but the idea, it's operating today in our country. We need to kind of find ways that we can bring it to our communities and cities on a more local level.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to be kind of a joke because I'll answer this way to pretty much every question, but it depends. I'm an ecologist, I look at systems, so the answer to every question is it depends. But I think there are probably a lot of things that can be done in the short term to start to, when the City of New York, Plan YC, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's the Master Sustainability Plan for New York City. And one of the things that I think they did with that was really smart was identify things that can happen right now. And because they need to create energy that goes into that plan to keep it going. So it's not, yes, we want to be timeless. We want our solutions to be resilient and flexible and meaningful over time. We want to create a smart phasing plan. So there's certainly longer things that are going to take a long time and things that are short. But it's also really important to think, what are things that you can do right now that can create some excitement and make people see that, yes, you're serious about this. This is a real thing that's happening. It's not a theoretical exercise that's going on at City Hall or wherever it's going on, or some people talking in a way that doesn't impact them. Is there anything on the site that can happen now so that people start to see and start to look forward to, okay, then what's next? And a careful phasing plan like that, I think that really worked very well in New York.
It starts to stimulate things too. You just take action. I mean, you do need to make some decisions and take some action that shows that you can make progress. But it has to be thoughtful because there's so much complexity to these projects. You got to put some thought and time into it. No question about it.
Okay, with that, thank you. A couple of the big takeaways, I guess, in summary is, communication, but 99% of that is listening. And also engaging with those that aren't from the same areas that you're in is huge. And then, of course, the final epiphany of the day, and the Big Lebowski figured it out, just go out and bowl, because apparently it's the great thing to do.